Discussions today have been extremely useful as we look towards future continued strong cooperation. Immediately after the bombings, Sri Lanka requested Interpol's assistance and an incident response team, the so-called IRT, was deployed. It was the first international team on the ground when they arrived on the 23rd of April, so just 2 days after the attacks took place. The team included expertise in areas such as counterterrorism, explosives, analysis, and disaster victim identification. From the moment the IRT arrived, the support received from the Sri Lankan authorities was excellent. Having the IRT on the ground, working alongside investigators also meant that any international requests for information in relation to the investigation could be made instantaneously, as well as checks against Interpol's global databases. And indeed, cooperation beyond the IRT's deployment resulted in the arrest of one of the alleged ringleaders, Ahmed Milan Hayatu Mohammed, in the Middle East, following the publication of an Interpol red notice. The threat of terrorism, as we all know, is global, and law enforcement cannot focus on any one ideology or region. With any form of extremism, the fundamentals are the same. The attacks are often carried out in a familiar fashion, soft targets and high-powered weapons. There are common elements. The individuals are highly radicalized. They had access to weapons, including explosives. They were mobile and had access to resources, whether online or through direct contacts. There has been a crime. There is a crime scene, and law enforcement needs to track each of the threats. This is where Interpol can play an important role in supporting its 194 member countries. Our network provides a global tripwire, particularly through the use of our global databases, which contain almost 100 million records, including details of more than 50,000 foreign terrorist fighters. I would like to end by again saying that the support provided to the Interpol team by Sri Lanka was excellent, and I look forward to our continued cooperation. In several areas, as I mentioned, the team that Interpol sent to Sri Lanka was a team of different experts. So the support was provided in the support of the managing the crime scene, so support in collecting relevant evidence. It was support in providing analysis, so conducting and collecting the necessary evidence and providing analysis with technological tools, let's say, to collect the bigger picture. So also support we provide in terms of providing analysis. We helped in analyzing a lot of data that were searched and seized by the authorities, so more than 1 terabyte of data were collected. And Interpol helped, the specialized team helped in analyzing this information that was collected. We helped also identifying the victims of these bomb attacks according to international standards. That's also something that Interpol has been doing previously in Ethiopia after the terror plane crash. You might recall that. So Interpol has been in cooperation with our international law enforcement community establishing certain standards that we also have been applying here in this case, and we help the national authorities again in properly identifying the victims, including the support for the repatriation of those victims, the foreign victims who came from other countries, and sending them back home to their home countries. So various areas where Interpol was able to provide support to the local authorities, of course, who have always been in the lead in conducting these investigations, including what I mentioned in my statement, that one of the alleged key ringleaders was arrested in a Middle East country based on a so-called red notice, which is a global alert and Interpol also supported the identification, the localization of this suspect. The extradition itself is a process that takes place between countries concerned. This is an area where Interpol is not directly involved. I mean, we have been discussing both. On the one hand, we have been discussing now the experience in this close cooperation that took place in the aftermath of this terrorist attack. And again, I applauded the President. I thank the government of Sri Lanka for the excellent cooperation that was provided when the team arrived during a whole month. That was the period where a team was present here and provided the support to the Sri Lanka National Police. We are also looking forward, as I mentioned, continuing our cooperation. So all the law enforcement agencies around the world are challenged by, let's say, the globalization of crime. We know that no country, no region can fight terrorism or organized crime or cybercrime in isolation. These have really become global issues, and we know globalization will continue, and also the globalization of crime will continue. And Interpol is providing a global platform to share relevant information. We are providing 17 different databases to be used by our member countries to share relevant information. This is something the Sri Lankan authorities have been doing in the aftermath of this attack. So crucial information was shared with international law enforcement. And I can tell you that this was very much appreciated, to have an opportunity on the one hand to identify possible links, but also to benefit from each other's experience. That's a very important element, and Interpol is also a platform where police officers can share their experience, for instance, in handling such a massive attack. So we have been discussing some ideas how to continue our cooperation, how Interpol could help the Sri Lankan National Police to continue using modern technology for investigative purposes, and also training is one of the important services Interpol provides, for instance in crime scene management, investigations in the darknet. So we have been discussing how to continue this close cooperation in the near future. I've been, again, on behalf of the organization, I expressed my thanks and my gratitude for the great support the team has been receiving during the stay here, the excellent level of cooperation, and that was the main purpose of this conversation. And again, it's important that we continue, that we, based on that excellent relation that was established now, that we continue, because we know the threat is not over yet. Global terrorism remains to be high on the agenda. We know that also with the experience in the Middle East, for instance, Syria, Iraq. We know that the caliphate physically is destroyed, but we know the threat is not over. And we know that it's more international and more global than ever. We have those who are returning to their home countries, the so-called foreign terrorist fighters. And in Interpol, we have a global database that now contains more than 50,000 profiles of foreign terrorist fighters. We want Sri Lanka to be a strong partner in our global early warning system. And I think we have made great efforts now, again, in sharing relevant information, in making sure that the right officer has the right information at the right time. And that's also what we have been discussing today. And again, I expressed my thanks on behalf of the international law enforcement community for that great cooperation that took place starting at the 23rd of April. As Interpol having the bigger picture, because we have 194 member countries, we know that this is an issue in all Interpol regions, specifically concerning the situation in Sri Lanka. Our partners, the Sri Lankan National Police, is the competent body to provide any answers concerning the concrete situation here in that country. I'm talking more generally about the situation globally and the support Interpol provides, encouraged, for instance, by the Security Council, which in many resolutions has been supporting Interpol's role as the global platform for information sharing. And again, we are making sure, that's what we have been discussing today, that the Sri Lankan authorities can more intensively use Interpol's tools and services we provide, because it's at the end of the day, it's a win-win situation. Hopefully we can help protecting Sri Lanka, and also on the other hand, Sri Lanka can contribute, as we say, making the world a safer place by sharing relevant information. And that's exactly what the police has been doing in the aftermath of this attack. That's something I leave for the experts here in Sri Lanka to answer. I can only say our cooperation, again, in the aftermath of this terrorist attack was an excellent one. And all the assessments concerning the specific situation in the country, I leave that for the national authorities, because Interpol was not responsible for the investigation, to be very clear on that. We have been providing support, but all the steps that were done and taken were done by the national authorities. That's the way the responsibilities are shared.